Hello, folks. Welcome to another adventure with WKNI's What's Up, Covington County, the show that we try to bring to Covington Countyans and share information about what's going on in our community. Here locally, we've got a special guest today, Staci Wilson, and although we won't see her on screen, Heather Davis is here. They're both from the South Central Alabama Mental Health Center. I'm sure there are a lot of y'all that think I'm an escapee, but I'm just actually on parole from there. That are here to talk with us seriously, though, about a number of things that affect our community and affect families in our communities. And I'm going to get serious now. One of the things that Staci deals with is prevention, and we're going to kind of get into that as the course of the program goes. But it's really important what they do there, and she's going to give us some information and some statistics that I want you to pay particular attention to. A, because she's smarter than I am, and B, because these are things that are relevant to our community, people walking around us all the time that we have no idea of what's going on in their minds. And that's probably sometimes a good idea, but we're charged with one thing down here on this planet, and that's to try to look after with each other. Love one another, I think it says in the scriptures. And there's nothing that shows our love more than another than to try to serve someone without any thought of reward. And that's what these people do at the South Central Alabama Mental Health Center. Now, if you've got just a minute or two, Staci, can you tell us a little bit about South Central Alabama Mental Health Center? You know, how long you've been there, and maybe a kind of a general list of some of the services you offer, and of course where you're located. I know where you're located, but.
Okay, well, I've been employed at South Central for a little over 15 years. We offer services for both children and adults that cover mental illness, substance abuse. Now, substance abuse is primarily for adults. We also have the developmental disabilities programs. Through some of our children's programs, we offer back-to-school programs, after-school type programs that we have just implemented that began, I think around September 1st, we started those in all 4 of our counties. We are located down on Highway 55, just past the road to turn to the
like you're going to Solmar Estates.
Yes.
Okay, kind of make a
down on the right
45-degree. There's a church there. You make a right and an immediate left, and kind of
right. That's our administrative offices, but also that is where we have our outpatient facility. Our day programs are going to be over at the Montezuma Complex that's on Academy Drive,
right,
as well as our substance abuse outpatient and residential.
I think we're really lucky to have something like that located here in Andalusia.
Oh, absolutely.
I think we're lucky to have people like you and Heather to work in our community, even though we can't see her on TV. This provides a great service, I think. What counties do you serve? We have Covington,
Coffee, Crenshaw, and Butler.
Coffee,
Crenshaw,
and Butler. Folks, now I know that some of our broadcast is limited to, mostly Covington County, but folks in these other counties, if they're having a problem resolving things, and it doesn't have to be suicide prevention, it may be a problem with anger or anything, substance abuse, anything like that. These people can be a lot of help to you, and they can pursue it in a studied way that maybe sometimes when we get our emotions involved, we don't handle.
Right.
We just don't know. We're not professionals. We're stumbling through life, and you folks hopefully and generally have a better grasp on how to look at that kind of thing than we do.
We do. We have trained professionals, licensed therapists. We accept insurances, Blue Cross, Medicaid, Medicare. So we have a wide array of services that can be offered in-home therapy. So there's just a lot of things out there that people don't realize that we do have, you know.
Well, that's kind of what the reason we want to have y'all on here is to make the community aware or help them become aware of what you do here, because we've got a lot of needs. We're far from perfect people as we are brought here on
And
this
the
planet.
need's growing.
Yeah, I agree.
It's growing every day, especially with substance abuse.
I would think so. And then aren't there a lot of subsets of things that occur from the substance abuse? I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
I remember when I was a kid, we had a neighbor who's had a son that was my age. We played a lot. His dad had terrible experiences in World War II. We didn't know what post-traumatic stress syndrome at that time was. We just thought he was a mean drunk. But his daddy was the sweetest guy in the world, would coach at baseball, that kind of stuff. And then every once in a while, he would have a drunken episode, and he was the meanest guy in the world. And I can only imagine what it was like for that friend of mine to come home every day and not know which daddy he was going to run into. You know, and that kind of thing. Now, that was alcohol, and alcohol is an addictive drug, I guess.
Yes, it is.
I think it may be, one of the most addictive, nicotine, but
there's so much stigma attached to addiction or mental illness as a whole, but specifically with addiction, a lot of people, look at it like, well, they made that choice. Well, they did make the choice, but after a certain point in making that choice, the drug controls them, that they no longer have the capacity to control the need to want to stop.
yeah, I think it's kind of tragic a lot of times when you see somebody that's caught in that loop, and they really think that they're controlling it, and they can't.
Right.
It's
and typically they're using the drugs or alcohol to self-medicate for other underlying issues. So that's kind of where we have to approach mental health along with a person's physical overall health.
right.
Because they all play a factor together.
Yeah, I'm sure they do, and of course the stability of the family becomes endangered because of that.
It doesn't affect just the one who is addicted. It affects everyone in that family. It can affect the friends, the co-workers. Everybody is affected by it. They are affected differently, but they are affected by it.
Well, and don't you think, Staci, that it's really, really important that when we see people like that we try to come at them with open arms instead of with condemnation?
Right.
Because they've got, that old saying about having a monkey on the back. There's more to that that's true than not. I've actually, I'm 68. I've seen a lot of things, and I hope I'm going to see some more.
Right.
But I've seen friends of mine that had alcohol and drug problems. I mean, I grew up in the 60s and 70s. That was like the kickoff. That have gone through some terrible things and actually were physically addicted to alcohol or drugs. I mean, the struggle to get off of them is not easy.
A lot of people, because of the stigma, they don't know where, they don't want to seek help because of the fear of being judged.
Right.
But the way I look at it is, especially like if you have a child that is suffering with some type of drug or alcohol, would you rather worry about somebody placing judgment on that child, or do you want to worry about the safety of that child?
Yeah, I think the safety is the paramount.
That would be mine.
Staci, we're going to break here for a commercial. We'll be back shortly. Thank you so much. Welcome back to another segment of What's Up, Covington County, and I'm so happy to have you. In fact, it's a privilege to have Staci Wilson with us here from the South Central Alabama Mental Health Center. They're located off of Highway is it 55 South?
Mhm.
I call it the Florella Highway. Just past the edge of town, go past the South Alabama is one of their newest Dollar Generals, and you'll see a road that goes off to the right in front of a church, and then a road goes to the left. That's their administrative offices. They've also got, I guess you want to call it classes or
We have
learning
outpatient.
center, outpatient
Mhm.
facilities over at the Montezuma Center.
Right, the day program.
The
for
day
everyone.
program there. They've got great facilities. Staci came here particularly today to talk about prevention, and prevention can mean prevention about a lot of things.
Yes.
And if you could kind of go into what the parameters of areas that you can help prevent, lack of a better word, prevent pain, suffering, and misery.
Right. Well, prevention, a lot of people think of prevention as suicide prevention or drug and alcohol prevention.
Right.
But there are also prevention services that you can offer in maintaining overall good mental health. Knowing the warning signs of depression, knowing the warning signs of bipolar and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that can encompass a lot of different things: bullying, anger management, domestic violence. So all of that can be encompassed in prevention services, but primarily the grant that we are under right now, it focuses more on prescription drug abuse.
And it's my understanding that we're kind of number one when it comes to prescription drug abuse down here.
Unfortunately, statistics show that Region 4, which is what includes Covington County, that we have the highest percentage of 12 to 17-year-olds that have reported using, for non-medical purposes, misusing prescription drugs.
Did you hear that, folks? Here we are in the Mayberry of Alabama, and we have the highest percentage of I guess, misuse of prescription drugs by young people from 12 to 17, is that?
12 to 17-year-olds.
Now, folks, that ought to scare you. It scares me, and all my youngins are older than that. But, if you love your children or your grandchildren, pay attention to that. What would it be some of the things that would be indicators maybe that you would see that you had someone that was doing that in their home?
Well, first of all, you would look for the high risk, which would be those that have a history of substance abuse in their family, or someone that is already misusing drugs there. It could just be a lot of things. If somebody has been subjected to bullying and other things, typically that is a kind of a way to escape. It doesn't make it right, the right way to address it, but, the early onset of use is getting younger and younger. When I was in school, we didn't have these kind of issues. We had our own issues.
Oh, yeah.
But, you didn't see these until you got on up into high school. But 12-year-olds, that's getting, they're still babies.
No kidding.
They're still babies, and they don't understand that their minds are not fully developed, and the lasting effects of what that drug is going to do by misusing it at such an early age is going to wreak havoc on them the rest of their life.
Yeah. Well, and there are other things that they don't even think about. Typically, the horror story is, there goes Billy. He was a high school All-American, and now he can't hardly walk because he overdosed on, Prozac or something like that. And I don't know, that's probably an exaggeration.
A lot of
but there are a lot of cumulative things, as you said, the lack of the brain's ability to grow.
Right, and make good choices.
And make good choices at that particular point in time, or is kind of worrisome. But there are other tertiary things that could be the beginning of liver problems later on in life, and take it from somebody who's watched people with cirrhotic livers. die, it's a terrible thing.
Right.
There's just a lot of overall consequences that, as a youth, you don't ever think about. And I bet Judge Kavanaugh right now is thinking, "Gosh, there's some things I did when I was 17 I wish I hadn't done."
Oh yeah, I think we can all say that.
Yeah, and but one of that I guess sometimes it's as simple maybe as counting the number of pills in a bottle, which nobody does except your pharmacist.
Right.
And given what you've just said, that if one of the precursors for abuse is having either a tendency in your surroundings to have people that abuse drugs or alcohol or whatever. I mean, a lot of times if the people that you've got around you are using drugs and alcohol, they're not going to be aware of what your problem is because of their own problems. Is that right?
Right. They're too busy focused on themselves, but it starts off as something simple.
Mm-hmm.
They hurt themselves at ball practice or in a ball game or something like that, and we take them to the doctor, and immediately the pain is so bad, we need to give them something to help it. Where we fail is, as parents, we need to monitor that. Locking up those prescriptions, giving them only as they're prescribed, and that is one of the things is, so many times, and I'm guilty of it. If I've got a bad headache where the Tylenol bottle may say only take 2 every 4 hours, well,
4's even better.
3 to 4 is probably going to help me a little bit better. So, as human beings, we have that natural tendency to want to test those boundaries a little bit, and they're not always the safest thing to do.
Yeah, I kind of call it mowing the yard. There's a place where you can mow your yard and it's fine, but if you get too smart and you say, well, if I cut it real low, I won't have to mow it as often. When you mow the yard then, and the grass doesn't come back, you've mowed it too much. And that's kind of
killed the roots.
Yeah, and that's what you're kind of dealing with. When we get back in just a minute, I'd like for us to talk about something that I know is a problem here in Covenant County, because I know there have been lives lost because of it, and that's not just addiction, but that's bullying. And I'm sure you've seen some of the things that happen as a part of the bullying that goes on, and it's got a new element now with social media that when I was in high school, most of the bullying was done out in the hallways or in the locker room or a bathroom or something like that. And nowadays it never stops.
Yeah, and people are creating false Facebook pages and taunting other people and things like that, where their parents just think, oh, well, this is their Facebook page. It all looks so innocent, and they're praying for one another, but, here's this alter ego over here on another Facebook page that's just bashing, people.
Folks, we're going to be back in just a minute after these messages. Welcome back to What's Up, Covenant County. Staci Wilson here from South Central Alabama Mental Health Center. She has been scared to death, but she has sacrificed herself in the name of public service. If she were really a selfish person, she'd have Heather Davis over here with us. Heather's eyes just got this big, and I saw hate for the first time. They're here.
Stay tuned, you'll feel it soon too.
No. They're here. We've kind of chased a rabbit or two here, but we're talking about prevention. And there are a lot of things that they can do to help with prevention. One of the things I asked Staci to let me use and hold up is this pamphlet here. It's called the Mental Health First Aid, MHFA, Mental Health First Aid. Folks, even you folks that think you're sane, you ain't. no, that's a, we have all got something in our lives that's just a little bit out of kilter. Some folks are better at managing it than others, and some folks have less problems than others. But there's always something out there that's either in our mind or in our life that's bigger than our capacity to handle it. Some people are fortunate enough that they can turn to spiritual means and get a lot of that handled. Some people turn to other things, alcohol and drugs, to help them deal with it. But it all becomes a method of pain management, and it may be something that goes back to, feeling not thinking that you're worthy of something. Started when you were 4 years old and you didn't even realize that there was something like that might have set the tumblers in motion that now control your life. What, we talked about some of the prevention things you did. We mentioned bullying for a minute. But y'all, do you have, I remember this, I guess it was August maybe. You had a gathering, a meeting, a seminar. You had a lot of young people that came out, I think, to the center, and it was, they were mostly from schools, and it was, maybe I'm confused. Something about anger management or control. Y'all didn't have that? Okay. Okay, I'm crazy.
It's not ringing a bell with me.
Well, that's okay.
Now, we did have in August suicide prevention training.
Yeah,
it was QPR.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, I get confused. I'm old, and what do I know? You're the professional. What did y'all discuss during that suicide prevention training?
Well, that was the gatekeeper training, and we had community members, people that were in EMA, that work with the EMA 911, LBW. We had some school people, Children's Policy Council, members of law enforcement were there. And it was basically just a short little 2-hour snippet training called gatekeeper training, so that they can recognize some of the warning signs and know how to initially get some help to someone that are showing signs of suicide, so that we can kind of get a grasp on that and potentially save lives.
How much of that training gets down, say, to secondary education, primary education, elementary school, junior high, and high school? How much of that kind of training on recognizing that thing, do you have an idea, gets down to the teachers, principals, and the counselors?
It does, and that's one of the things that we try to do is, talk to the schools, talk to the teachers, the piano teacher, the youth group leader, anybody that does come in contact with you, to try to educate them on what are the warning signs. And there are warning signs. So many times after someone has completed suicide, they're like, oh, well, if I'd only known. Well, there are warning signs. It's just sometimes we don't always we don't see the big picture. We're primarily focusing on just knowing you in a work environment, whereas, this person's got them in a family environment, this one's got them in a leisure thing. So, but once everybody starts to put those pictures together, there were warning signs. So just being able to know what those warning signs are, and when you're in a school, there are more than certain teachers, because you change classes, and you have your PE and you have your clubs and things like that. So being able to notice those signs and then kind of brainstorming with your other teachers and things like that, so that you can kind of pinpoint someone that you think may be having a little trouble, and just reaching out to them and telling them that it's okay to talk about it.
Yeah.
And getting them that help.
And this is kind of suicide headed in the opposite direction, and what I would say it's not a clinical way, but these people that we've had that have had these massive murderous incidents at schools.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I think sometimes that's many of the same things, but they choose to go outward with their emotions instead of internalizing it like
Right.
somebody that is suicidal or completes suicide. It's interesting though, they've done a lot more analysis on those
Mm-hmm.
situations, but in every case that I'm familiar with, and I kind of kept an eye on that because maybe I don't want to sound ghoulish, but that behavior is interesting to me. There have been a ton of signs that person would exhibit that kind of behavior, and nobody talked to anybody else about it, and nobody talked with them about it. And that's an outward vestige of the same kind of thing that some people do
Right.
internally. And it's been my observation. I have a couple of friends who've lost children to drug abuse. It's a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Suicide is, and sometimes you permanently choose that end by accident. I didn't know I was committing suicide when I overdosed at that time. And you don't get the chance to tell your mother or your dad about that. And I've watched these friends of mine grieve and grieve and grieve. And while it's a personal thing for you, it's an extremely hard thing for those that love you to deal with. And,
Right. And so many times, we try to focus, you're trying to say anything you can to somebody that may be showing those signs of suicide, but one of the things that we need to steer clear of is telling them, well, how would your children feel? How would this, just think of how this would affect your mother.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is with that is that's trying to guilt them into not doing it, but that's not focusing on their problem. That's trying to shift the focus to someone else, and it's not about them.
Right.
It's about the person that is showing those signs and symptoms and getting them the help.
And by the time that somebody's at that point, Staci, they're usually in such a black little box that it's hard for them to see.
Right.
Any more than what's. I'm saying this based on a certain amount of personal experience, but it's overwhelming,
Right.
and you don't see or feel, or it's like being in this little bitty thing, and you can't even look up and see light. And
well, studies show too that just noticing that somebody may be showing some warning signs, but just asking them, how are they? Is there something that's going on?
mm-hmm.
Because so many times they have felt so alone that nobody cared.
Right.
That just that initial, oh, well, somebody does care.
Yeah. Love one another.
Mm-hmm.
Folks, we're going to take a break here. We'll be back for our final segment. Welcome back to this final section of What's Up, Covenant County. I'm here with Staci Wilson from the South Central Alabama Mental Health thing. And I've held this thing up, this mental health first aid brochure. It's available at the South Central Alabama Mental Health Center. We've got the information on the back, and we will put this on our Facebook site so that you can find that information. But Staci and then, when we originally started this, Staci contacted us because of they're trying to promote something that centers around that. And I'd like for us in this last section, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you talk about your prevention and recovery resources fair that you've got coming up.
Okay. Well, it all started, September is National Recovery Month. And the theme for this year is invest in health, home, purpose, and community. And we've had different rallies and things like that centered around recovery. So this year we kind of wanted to put a little twist on it, since we're now doing prevention, is to offer a prevention and recovery resources fair. It can be, we've got people from LBW coming with adult education, Voc Rehab is going to be there, DHR, public health. We're going to be offering HIV and hepatitis C free testing. as well as some other types of health screenings. But we're just trying to make this a day of the community coming together to show those that are in recovery that we're behind them and help them learn about the available resources that are here in Covington County so that they can sustain their recovery. But we're putting a little spin on it this year with the prevention.
Right.
You know, just trying to educate them before they get to having trouble and having to be in recovery.
Yeah.
We want to nip it in the bud before it begins.
Yeah, it's kind of like preventive medicine in a way. I think it's really admirable what y'all are, Heather, trying to do out there. It's not just you. That's really a big operation out there.
It takes a village.
And you've got a lot of people that are helping. Again, I say it's a blessing on Andalusia that we've got you folks out there, because we've talked about prevention, and it's just an absolute necessity for some people to survive. But so much damage in talking with you is done. Well, I was saying the road to hell is paved with good intentions. It seems as if you don't know how to properly address someone that has a problem, or how to ask questions, just the most general things. If you try to I think sometimes if you try to become a mental health counselor yourself without the training, you do more damage to someone oftentimes than you would have done if you just said, "I love you," and have you talked with somebody else instead of trying to self-analyze or analyze someone else that you're not qualified to do that to.
Right. Well, so many times, people that do have drug addictions and things like that, unfortunately, there are legal consequences. We send them to jail and they serve their time and everything, but when they get out of jail and they go back into recovery from drugs and alcohol, we don't do a very good job as a community in supporting them to stay on that right path. We just kind of, let them out of jail and, oh, here, good luck.
Oh, you're well.
Yeah, you're cured. No, it's a daily.
It's not like a head coat.
Right. It's a daily struggle that someone has to live with, but a lot of times that is the only life that they knew. And if we don't show them other avenues that are proactive, that, they come out, they don't have a job, they don't have financial resources, they don't have money to buy groceries, well, then all of that stress and anxiety starts to build up. Well, they're going to go back to the path that they knew.
Right.
Because that's easier. Because they don't know where to turn to. They don't know what resources are out there to help them.
Right. And again, I'm glad that, can I hold this up?
Sure.
You'll also see this on our Facebook page, and there'll be a flashover as a part of this presentation that will have this. But this is a Prevention and Recovery Resources Fair, and that's going to be on the 27th of September 2018. Is that a Saturday?
It's next Thursday.
Next Thursday, this coming Thursday. There's probably something there for every one of us. It's sponsored by South Central Alabama Mental Health, the Central Church of Christ, a number of other organizations here in town are sponsors as well, if I remember right. But it's a good thing. If you've got spare time, or maybe if you don't think you got spare time, you can work it out. It might not be a bad thing to go to, even if you're just going for somebody else. I'm just asking for a friend. It might be a really healthy thing for you to go to and participate in.
Well, now that you mentioned that, I did want to also say that South Central is going to have some counselors on hand so that perhaps somebody that is dealing with drug addiction or alcoholism or something like that, we will have counselors on hand to kind of initiate the treatment process, getting that initial access to treatment, answering questions. How does the treatment process work? What can I expect? What is the cost? Different things like that. So, you know, you've just got clean and you've got family members that need to get clean. Bring them. We'll have somebody on hand to answer their questions and start that process of getting them on the road to recovery.
And I would also say if you've just gotten out of something like that and you're uh, uh, having trouble making ends meet or something like that, there are churches that many churches in this area that will try to help. Don't help you get back on that path because they don't want you there either. Uh, they you know, and I'm not making an endorsement for a church or anything like that, but I just think that it's real important that if you come out of something like that, don't be embarrassed or ashamed about it. There are people that really have us. They're not perfect people, but they want to love you and they want to help you and they don't want to see you fall back into something that's not healthy for you.
Right.
These people. There are some grants available for y'all, or
Right.
how does that work?
The grant that we currently have now is the SPIFRX, which has to do specifically with prescription drug abuse, where um, we provide information dissemination through media campaigns, take back events, those drug take back events where you see us um, taking back all those old, unused, expired medications.
Holy cow! I couldn't believe how many pounds of it. And the one that were taken up in the one we just had a month and a half ago.
It was in August, the 1st of August.
Yeah.
It was a little over 100 pounds.
Yeah, 104 point something pounds, and folks, that's a lot of little things that size to get 104 pounds.
Right, and that didn't even count the liquids and things like that were turned in.
Yeah.
That was strictly the actual
Yeah.
pills. So that is one of the things that we do through our SPIFRX. And then we have My Smart Dose, which was another statewide initiative. Now that falls under that same grant.
Right.
So we'll be bringing along some information that deals, that's going to be targeted directly at LBW. So we're look forward to working with them and hosting some activities, alternative activities for their students to keep them from having downtime where they start to get into some unhealthy choices.
Well, have you got anything else you'd like to share for us or with us?
I don't. I just welcome everybody to come next Thursday, September the 27th at the Central Church of Christ. We're going to have it there in the parking lot between the Christian Service Center and the Church of Christ. And we welcome everybody and just come out and join us.
Well, Staci, I appreciate you and Heather coming down here and putting up with us. We had a rocky start to this program, folks, and it wasn't their fault. It was our complete lack of professionalism. And these two ladies have been absolutely troopers and have put up with a lot of hiccups this morning with us. And I thank you for coming in, giving so freely of your time. Heed what they have to say, folks. This is an opportunity for us to face something with other people that too often we try to face down by ourselves. These are professionals. These are local community assets that we can use. And you know anything about WKNI and myself and our staff, we're big on trying to keep it local. Keep it local. Check with these folks. I think the help that you can get is going to be superb. Remember two things. Be kind to one another and keep it local. We'll see you later.